After a few drinks, my friend said Chloe's getting married. I said nothing, and he kept pressing. What? Didn't she tell you? I gulped down another mouthful of liquor. Did your goddamn first love ever invite you to her wedding? On the way back, I received Chloe's emailed invitation. Many years ago, I'd even joked that if she dared to marry someone else, I'd crash the wedding to steal her back. Yet now I froze for the longest time, too hesitant to even send a reply text. I was the kid who made it out of our small town. Relatives always said I'd go furthest. My parents basked in the reflected glory, telling me to study hard in New York and seize any chance to stay there. But I hadn't thought that far ahead, believing in going with the flow and taking things one step at a time. Most of my university days were spent pursuing Chloe. I wasn't dazzled by the glitz and glamour of the big city, but I was mesmerized by Chloe. Many people liked Chloe, but they didn't dare approach her. Only I had that boldness. My fondness for Chloe wasn't tied to any specific incident or scene. I simply knew that seeing her made me happy. If she chose a seat near me in class, I'd be excited all day. Throughout my freshman year, most of the money I earned from my part-time jobs was spent on Chloe. Whenever someone mentioned that girls liked a particular thing, I would buy it for her. My roommates all laughed at me. Even a doormat isn't this pathetic. They all said Chloe could beckon me at will or dismiss me just as easily, but they didn't understand Chloe wasn't that kind of girl. During second semester of freshman year, a message came from my pinned contact. Can you accompany me to Disneyland tomorrow? After replying instantly, I started researching online guides, counting down the hours until tomorrow. After arriving, watching Chloe skillfully guide me around, I instinctively asked, "Have you been here before?" "Many times, but coming with you is a first." I naively followed up, "Then why did you need me to come with you?" "Because today's my birthday." She handed me her shoulder bag, adding casually, "Hold this for me." I smiled as I took it and accompanied her through one attraction after another. Beneath the dazzling fireworks, she clasped her hands together and made a wish. "What did you wish for?" She looked at me and said, "I'll tell you when it comes true." When we left Disneyland, there was still over an hour before the school's curfew. Hurrying back desperately, I kept checking the time and repeatedly urged the driver to go faster. Yet when we arrived, we were still late. Normally, I would climb the wall to get into the dorm, but Chloe was wearing a skirt, and I didn't want her to have to scale a wall after such a long, exhausting day. "Miss Chloe, we can't get in." We stood at the door as I uttered this pointless remark. I had just over $100 left in my pocket, but I steeled myself and booked a twin room at Motel 6. Leaving me with only a few dollars. Those last few dollars were barely enough to buy 2 cup noodles from the convenience store downstairs. "Is there anything else you'd like to eat?" I asked as I handed her the prepared noodles. She took them and simply asked, "Are you stupid? Spending all your money on me, how are you going to manage the rest of the month?" I hadn't really thought that much. I just scolded her, "You're the dumb one, daring to come get a hotel room with a guy." The moment the words left my mouth I regretted it, realizing I'd offended her, and quickly followed up with, "I didn't mean." I had no idea how to explain myself, so in the end I swore like making an oath, gesturing earnestly as I assured her, "Don't worry, I won't lay a finger on you." Chloe suddenly burst out laughing, pointing at the cup noodles and saying, "I'm tired, I'm going to sleep." It turned out that cup noodle was prepared for me by her. She noticed my discomfort in Disneyland, how I smiled and said I wasn't hungry when faced with outrageously expensive food, claiming I wasn't used to the local dishes. That entire night, I tossed and turned in bed. In the boys' dormitory, the favorite topic was always romantic conquests, bragging about which department's girl someone had slept with. I won't deny that I had those kinds of thoughts about Chloe, but tonight, in this very moment, I didn't. All I could think about was how tired she must be after a full day of fun and that she deserved a comfortable bed to sleep in. After Chloe fell asleep, I just gazed at her profile. It was such a magical feeling. The next day, when we stepped out of the hotel, Chloe took my hand in hers. I froze on the spot, staring at her. "Let's go, my boyfriend." Only when she pulled me forward did it dawn on me that I'd been bestowed this new title. I nearly leaped for joy. After a while, she added, "Didn't you ask what I wished for?" I looked at her, puzzled. "What?" She raised our interlaced fingers and said, "It came true." Those few minutes were undoubtedly the happiest moment of my life, when Chloe took my hand, called me her boyfriend, and said I was the wish she'd made upon a star. During our college years, we were like any ordinary couple, clinging to each other 24/7 if we could, performing dramatic farewells beneath her dorm building, while juggling part-time jobs to fund our travels. As graduation approached while we were submitting resumes, Chloe asked me about my plans for the future. "Marry you." I wasn't joking. For many years, my sole purpose in living had been to marry Chloe. I desperately wanted to build a home with her, longed to come home daily to find her curled on the couch crying over soap operas, needed to reach out at midnight and find her there. Chloe smiled at me and said, "Sure, let's work hard together." Many years later, I regretted never formally proposing to Chloe, but then I realized she had already said yes to me many years before. Chloe is from New York, yet she insisted on living with me. With our savings, we found an apartment in Brooklyn, New York. Why choose such an expensive area? Because Chloe's job was nearby. As for me, I didn't mind. I could wake up early and squeeze onto the subway. I just didn't want her to have it so hard. Let's move to another place. I'll save more and find us a better environment. I glanced around, realizing there wasn't even a shopping mall in this neighborhood. I didn't want Chloe to lose even her last bit of interest. Yes, there is. She pointed at the food truck at the distant street corner, Greek gyros. Bring me one every time you come home. Greek gyros were my favorite, and Chloe grew to love them because of me. I nodded in agreement. I'll buy them for you every day until you get sick of them. 20 square meters, this was Chloe's and my first home. We bought couple items, but for things without matching pairs, Chloe would get pink and blue ones instead. Clapping her hands, she laughed and said, "Now this looks like a place where a couple lives." When we first moved in, it was winter. The electricity was out all night due to maintenance on the building's wiring. Lying in bed, we kept each other warm. "It's just the cold, we'll add another blanket," she said, nestling closer. "And the dark, I've got you, that's all I need." Suddenly I remembered when we traveled before, and Chloe had argued with the manager about the hotel sheets being too thick and heavy, making her uncomfortable. Yet now, afraid of the dark and usually a bit spoiled, she hadn't uttered a single complaint, following me without hesitation. Holding her in my arms, I silently vowed to make something of myself and someday marry her. From that moment on, I put my whole heart into working harder. I took on the toughest, most exhausting jobs and willingly dealt with the most difficult clients. At dinner tables, I bowed and scraped, downing glass after glass with clients while parroting the flattery I'd learned. I had little tolerance for alcohol, but staying sober was non-negotiable. Between bathroom breaks, I forced myself to vomit drinking, gagging, repeating the cycle until every client left satisfied. For a long time, that's how I drank, until my body couldn't take it anymore. One day I actually coughed up a mouthful of blood. The doctor said it was due to long-term alcohol abuse, and warned that serious consequences would follow without timely treatment. Left with no choice, I had to be hospitalized. Chloe rushed to the hospital in a panic, holding back tears as she pleaded, "If it comes to it, let's just find another job. I've learned my lesson." I pointed at my stomach and smiled to console her, a bloody lesson. She got angry and deliberately punched me in the stomach. "I don't want money, I want you." Chloe still wouldn't give up, trying both openly and subtly to persuade me to change jobs, and I always managed to come up with another excuse to shut her down. Sales bring in quick money, I couldn't switch. All I could do was study new tricks, researching how to avoid drinking or what to eat beforehand to suppress the effects. It was through this kind of training that my alcohol tolerance grew stronger and stronger. I was the most hardworking among my circle of friends. Whenever we gathered, they would always tease me with a laugh, "Do you really have to push yourself this hard?" And with my arm around Chloe's shoulder, I declared with all the confidence of announcing to the whole world, "I'm going to marry Chloe no matter what." Later, I hopped between several companies. I didn't have any particular preferences or criteria. As long as the pay was good and I could handle the job, I took it. In my third year of working, I finally settled down and landed a position at a Fortune 500 company. My boss told me that as long as I worked hard, the sky was the limit. I gave all my paycheck to Chloe, and we discussed upgrading to a nicer apartment. She stared at me with wide eyes. "Don't you want to marry me anymore? Just looking for fun?" "No," I surrendered. Saving up, saving up. My mother back in our hometown wanted to visit me in New York. Chloe, worried about the elderly making the trip exhausting, booked her a plane ticket. What embarrassed me more was that our rental only had one bed, not even space for a makeshift floor bed. Left with no choice, Chloe and I had to book a motel nearby. But in the end, my mother didn't come. She called, saying she was too busy with things at home. I suppose she must have thought the plane ticket was too expensive and couldn't bear to spend the money. At the end of the call, she sounded a little regretful, saying she hadn't met her future daughter-in-law yet, but she and my dad would try to save up so I could marry her sooner. My sense of urgency grew stronger, wondering how someone with no background could get married in a big city. Chloe never mentioned her parents, but I knew they probably didn't approve of me. Otherwise, how could 5 years pass without them ever suggesting they'd like to meet me? Chloe had never lied to me. The only thing she ever deceived me about was her family background. One night when I was 24, after showering and lying in bed, Chloe hesitated several times as if wanting to say something but holding back. Sensing her mood, she finally spoke. "My parents want to meet you." "All right." I got up and opened the wardrobe, pulling out my most presentable clothes and constantly holding them up against myself to compare. She looked troubled and said, "I told them you just got promoted." I rubbed her head to help her relax, and then, "Did my salary double?" She nodded. I didn't see why she should feel awkward about this. If I were the girl's father vetting a boyfriend, I'd exaggerate the situation too. Don't worry, I'm sure I can earn that much. A long time ago, I jokingly said I was a poor boy and asked if her family was wealthy. Without hesitation, she said they were just ordinary working-class folk in New York. It wasn't until I saw that her father was a business magnate frequently featured in major financial media that I was stunned. That dinner completely shattered all my previous conceptions of wealthy people. They didn't dine in gilded restaurants, but rather in places resembling private estates, where classical music was performed by dedicated musicians before the meal. Against the backdrop of murmuring streams, we were essentially savoring sophistication and artistic conception. A server stood behind me explaining the dishes. After listening attentively, all I grasped was that this particular dish shouldn't be chewed directly, it required savoring with just the tip of the tongue. I'd prepared a bellyful of conversational responses, yet Chloe's parents surprisingly asked little about my circumstances. I tried my hardest to pretend, to play the role of a successful elite, to put on an air of ambition and confidence. Though I'd prepared for days, I still ended up making a fool of myself repeatedly. The crushing sense of failure and shame kept tormenting me. Every detail here served as a reminder of the gap between Chloe and me. When Chloe went to the restroom, her mother handed me an envelope hidden under the table. "She's already waited 5 years for you. She can't possibly wait another 5. I nodded calmly, neither answering nor accepting the envelope. When Chloe returned, she was followed by a group of people. Among them was someone about my age, but his demeanor was far beyond what I could match. The group chatted merrily. From their conversation, I learned that the Spencers and Chloe's family had been close for generations, and he seemed somewhat interested in her. Like an outsider, I sat to the side. Thankfully, Chloe secretly held my hand under the table. "Who is this?" Someone noticed my presence and asked about me. Her mother quickly interjected, "Chloe's friend." Chloe seemed dissatisfied and wanted to step forward to explain, but I grabbed her wrist and shook my head with a smile. Spencer was chatting happily with them, which made me feel somewhat out of place. In the end, all eyes turned to me, and I heard her father say, "If you're willing, you can go work at Spencer's company." Everyone present awaited my response. As I rose to my feet, Chloe spoke first. "Dad." I had never seen Chang Lu like this before, her face stern and unyielding. "You absolutely didn't need to humiliate us like this. I don't care whether you like him or respect him. The only thing that matters is how I feel." With those words, Chloe took my hand and led me away, disregarding the awkward glances of everyone present and paying no heed to her parents. We remained silent throughout the journey back. The moment we opened the door, I was about to say something, but her kiss silenced me. Her hand slipped into my pants, and I swept her up into my arms, rolling onto the bed together. That night, I desired her body more intensely than ever before. Driven by turbulent emotions, our movements were rougher, fiercer than usual, seeking solace and security in each other's possession. I got up and reached for the bedside drawer to grab a condom, but Chloe stopped me with her hand. "What if we had a child?" she said. I froze instantly, suddenly feeling like an animal. Chloe started crying. It seemed like the first time she'd ever shed tears for me. Through her sobs, she asked me, "Don't you want to have a future with me?" When she saw I wasn't responding, the arms she'd wrapped around my neck slowly dropped. She turned her head away and murmured in a wounded whisper, "Are you tired of me?" "No." Realizing my silence had hurt her, I lay down beside her and pulled her tightly into my arms. "We will have a future, just not with this child." I didn't want to use this child as a chain to bind Chloe, nor did I want her parents to think of me as some despicable rogue. Later, I went on with many lofty platitudes, not knowing how much Chloe actually absorbed, only aware that she eventually fell asleep in my arms with tears on her face. The following year, our lives returned to normal, as if we had just graduated. Chloe never mentioned her parents again. She managed our little home, while I worked hard to earn money, planning to stand confidently before her parents once we had saved enough. "Chloe, just give me a few more years." On the day I received my performance bonus, I left work early and went to a high-end supermarket, spending $300 on Chloe's favorite Japanese white strawberries. If not for being with Chloe, I probably would have never known in my lifetime that strawberries even come in different varieties, with the most expensive ones costing hundreds of dollars. I met Chloe's parents when I was still 2 blocks away from home. They weren't waiting for me. Our encounter was purely accidental. Her father and I never used to live in the city center, he prefers quiet. But what could we do? Our own daughter wouldn't see us. We only learned she lived here through friends. Her mother spoke with a thick New York accent, not openly expressing prejudice, yet it seeped through every word. Because of me, Chloe had a falling out with her family. Her parents had no choice but to move to a neighborhood just a few kilometers from ours. The elderly couple would walk around here daily, though Chloe must have been avoiding them. "I'll call her," I said hastily, pulling out my phone. "No need," his father stopped me, then added, "Her grandfather is ill and keeps talking about her lately. Let her go visit him at the hospital." I hung my head in shame, unable to lift it. Chloe had once told me she was raised by her grandparents. Now the old man wanted to see her, yet the message had to pass through me. I could only nod. As her mother walked away, she uttered another sentence. "Chloe's life shouldn't revolve solely around you." I'd never truly put myself in Chloe's shoes. While I was battling life's hardships, Chloe was fighting too, enduring accusations from family and confusion from friends, all burdens she bore for me. On the way back, I searched my phone for the neighborhood where his parents lived. It was merely 4 kilometers away, yet represented the chasm between a multi-million-dollar apartment and one worth mere hundreds of thousands. How laughable that I couldn't even afford the latter. Even Chloe's family housekeeper lived in better conditions than we did. Since learning how much Chloe had sacrificed for me, I'd been drowning in guilt every day. I often wonder if 22-year-old Chloe had gone to Europe for grad school, she'd be traveling the world freely without penny pinching. In so many moments, I genuinely believed I deserved to die. When Chloe returned from the hospital, her eyes were red from crying. I asked if her mother had scolded her again. She shook her head and said, "I always thought there'd be more time, but time waits for no one. I've been such an unfilial daughter, haven't I?" I couldn't find the words to speak. Choosing to stay with me seemed to be costing her more and more. Neither of us slept that night, thinking about what to do next. We decided she would quit her job first to take care of her grandfather at the hospital, while I would work harder to save money. Things were finally looking up. Although her parents still wouldn't accept me, they softened their stance, saying they'd consent to Chloe marrying me if I could buy an apartment in New York. When we heard this news, it felt like we were nearing the end of an endlessly long tunnel. We took out our bank cards, calculating the down payment and how much longer we'd need to save. Chloe became even more frugal, so I simply quit smoking altogether and threw myself into saving for marriage. Working part-time jobs just wasn't saving me any money. Fortunately, when I was 26, the company had this long-term project with slim chances of success that no one wanted to touch. I took it. My colleagues warned me, "You'll have to invest your own money first. If you lose, you'll end up with nothing." I'll take the gamble. I desperately need this chance to turn things around. If I don't seize it now, who knows how long I'll have to wait. I told Chloe about this, thinking she would try to dissuade me. To my surprise, she pulled out our savings passbook and said, "I believe in you, you'll definitely make it." With Chloe's encouragement, I pushed myself even harder, entertaining clients with drinks, drafting proposals late into the night, working around the clock, and I gritted my teeth through it time and again. Only when the client took my proposal and gave me a satisfied smile did my anxious heart finally settle. The collaboration I'd been pursuing for a year was finally at the final bidding stage. I'd sunk most of my money and energy into this, thinking that if I could just work hard for a few more years, I'd be making enough to propose to Chloe's parents as a man worthy of their daughter. But I never expected that when the contract was announced at the last moment, the winner would be my competitor, who had broken industry norms by slashing their bid by 3 percentage points. I wouldn't accept defeat and took my proposal to the client. Whether it was begging on my knees or groveling, in the end, he just patted me on the shoulder and said, "You're a talented young man, but New York has no shortage of talented young people." At that moment, those words felt like both encouragement and mockery. From then on, life knocked me right back to square one, leaving me with nothing. 5 years' worth of savings were nearly depleted because of me. I spent my days lying in my rented apartment, drowning in self-blame. I blamed everything on fate. Why wasn't I born in New York? Why was my family so poor? I even wondered why I couldn't have been Spencer. I slept like this for several days straight. It wasn't until Chloe returned from her business trip that I finally began to recover. "We'll be okay." Chloe held me, offering no other words of comfort except this one phrase, repeated like a mantra, "We'll be okay." I shook my head, crying with the abandon of a child, great torrents of tears soaking her shoulders as I sobbed uncontrollably. Why? I tried so hard, given everything I had, and still I'd failed. We'll never be okay again, I realized suddenly. Living is so difficult, and accomplishing anything is even harder. All I wanted was to marry Chloe. Was that really too much to ask? But it's just too hard, impossibly hard. After more than half a month, I finally stepped out of my rented apartment and returned to the company. The company refunded me part of my money and assigned me a few other projects. My career was in shambles, with no future in sight. Thinking about Chloe's 5 years, all I could offer her was nothing more than scraps. Ever since I learned about Chloe's family background, I've been overwhelmed by deep-seated inferiority. Back in school, our teacher would stand at the podium passionately preaching how education could change one's destiny. I believed it. Yet later, I developed an intense craving for money. I tried every means to earn cash, but no amount of effort could bridge the chasm between Chloe and me. At 27 years old, I suddenly understood a truth: the poor aren't worthy of love. Chloe. For the first time, I called her by her full name. The words "let's break up" stuck in my throat like a fishbone. I couldn't get them out no matter how hard I tried. Do you know why the female protagonist never chooses the second male lead? She waited for my answer. It was this year's hit show, with Chloe utterly obsessed, and I'd watched 2 episodes with her every night before bed. Yet I remembered this was the very question I'd once asked her, and now she'd tossed it back to me. I didn't know the answer then, and I still don't know now. Because in the male lead's world, she was never irreplaceable, she explained. If you're not irreplaceable, you won't be their steadfast choice. All she wanted was a love she could be certain of, a lover who would never abandon her. I clasped my hands behind my back, clenching my fists until my nails dug deep into my palms, the pain jolting me back to reality. But I couldn't bring myself to look at her. My gaze remained fixed on the darkened phone screen she'd just powered off. "Chloe, I'm tired," I said. "Let's break up." Despite all the prepared words, what came out was just these few short syllables. Like that darkened screen, my world was collapsing with a deafening roar, plunging into complete darkness. Her eyes flashed with disbelief, then instantly welled up with tears. "What did you say?" she asked. I recalled Chloe's mother's words. I couldn't selfishly ask her to wait another 5 years for me. Summoning all my strength, I repeated, "Let's break up." Chloe cried until she suddenly laughed, then took a deep breath, her eyes filled with disappointment, and said only one sentence: "I never thought you'd be a coward." Many people break up because they fall out of love, but for me and Chloe, it was because we loved too much. I wanted her to have a better life, and leaving me would make that possible. All the hardships her parents had shielded her from, she experienced them all with me. Someone like Chloe, she has everything, and the last thing she needs is love. People like me lack everything, yet never lack love. So I abandoned love. The breakup, I knew I'd never meet anyone like Chloe again in this lifetime. She was the person who loved me most in this world, flawless in her treatment of me. I walked down the street like an empty shell, murmuring, "I never want to meet anyone ever again." I'd had Chloe, no regrets in this life. After leaving home, I wandered aimlessly through the streets for what felt like ages before finally calling a friend. They were witnesses to Chloe and me along the way. I drank a lot of alcohol and told them about Chloe's background. Her father was the famous so-and-so, but they weren't shocked at all. A friend patted me on the shoulder and brought up something from many years ago. "It wasn't long after you two started dating when I saw Chloe stepping out of a luxury car right at the school gate. And not just any luxury car, the license plate still sticks in my mind to this day." Why? I smiled bitterly. Why did I know nothing about any of this? Probably because she saw how shocked I looked. After that, she forbade me from telling you and started deliberately avoiding such situations. Chloe's thoughtfulness extended even to this. She could consider my embarrassment an inferiority complex. My friend changed the subject. "So what the hell do you regret? She's a rich girl who toughed it out with you for years, only to get dumped by you in the end. My regret is that when I weighed the pros and cons, she wasn't part of the equation. I regret that someone like me wasn't worthy of someone like her. I regret that our lives were worlds apart when we happened to meet." It sounds ridiculous to say it now, but back then I would never have considered these things. I always thought love was just love, with no complications. But having reached this age, with Chloe in my life, I've come to realize there are so many things I need to consider. People like you are hypocrites. You think you're doing what's best for her, but you never even gave her a choice. I was rendered speechless, stung by the brutal honesty, and even more ashamed by the flowery rhetoric that followed. I was far less brave than Chloe, but I truly tried my best. I attempted to turn my life around, yet class remains an insurmountable chasm I cannot cross. If it were me, I couldn't give her the wedding she wanted. If it were me, I couldn't provide her with a stable life. If it were me, there would only be love, but no money. After that, neither of us spoke. My friend kept drinking bottle after bottle with me, but no matter how much I drank, I couldn't get drunk. Instead, I grew increasingly sober. And the more sober I became, the more it hurt. Chloe messaged me. My friend handed me his phone, asking if you were with me. For my sake, and for hers, let's not contact each other anymore. My friends felt sorry for me, repeatedly asking, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I nodded. In the first year after breaking up with Chloe, I suddenly lost my direction in life. Right after graduation, my goal had been to marry her. Later, my goal became to earn enough money to marry her. Losing Chloe felt like losing everything. I became hollow, living in a daze. The second year, I drowned myself in the busyness of work, pushing nonstop every day, too lazy to even go home. I spent most of my time immersed in the company, failing in love but succeeding in career. The saying somehow magically came true for me after years of effort. The manager position I'd been striving for finally became mine less than a year after Chloe left. The company rented me an apartment in a better location, a 2-bedroom, 1 living room unit. Compared to the cramped and dingy place I used to live in, it was like night and day. In the half-month after moving in, I frantically bought all sorts of things to fill the space, yet I always felt something was missing. So I dragged a friend over and asked, "Help me check what else I need." He examined every corner carefully and stared at me for a long moment before saying wistfully, "All this furniture, it's what Chloe liked, isn't it? You're not missing anything, you're just missing her." I watched as if seeing Chloe here herself. She dictated where the furniture should be placed, bouncing cheerfully on her favorite sofa, sprawling carefree on the carpet, saying, "Now the house is big enough, let's get a cat." "We just need a cat," I muttered. My friend shook her head, trying to snap me out of it. "How long are you going to keep deceiving yourself? She's still waiting for you. You still have a chance." I didn't answer, only said, "Come with me to buy a cat." The next year, when someone pursued me, I turned them down. When my family arranged a blind date, I found an excuse. My parents pressed me, "What kind of person are you actually looking for?" I couldn't answer. I only knew my heart was empty, and no amount of things could fill it. In the third year, a friend called, cautiously probing, "Chloe's in a relationship." "It's Spencer." I watched Chloe's Instagram update. Good for them, they're truly a match made in heaven. Later came the news of Chloe's wedding. After 3 years, it was the first time I'd heard from her. She invited me to her wedding. I still went, prepared a thick envelope with a check inside, and wrote "Happy Marriage" on the cover. At the entrance, the security guards stopped me. They could immediately tell the worth of my suit. How ridiculous, but that's reality. I didn't even have a ticket to enter. I hadn't brought the invitation with me. As they scrutinized me, I thought of the message Chloe had sent me and, helpless, could only open our chat history to prove myself. The security guard didn't let me in right away. He turned to make a phone call, and when he returned, he was exceedingly polite. "My apologies, sir. I failed to recognize your eminence." Without a word, I followed his lead into the venue. The wedding was held at the Plaza Hotel, dripping with luxury. I frequently saw those business tycoons from the news, raising their glasses not far from where I stood. Floral arches framed the scene amid a gathering of distinguished guests, an utterly lavish affair. Even if I were a millionaire, I could never have given Chloe a wedding like this. As I scanned the surroundings, someone tapped me on the shoulder. "Thank you for coming. Chloe often talks about you old classmates. Mr. Spencer, congratulations on your wedding." I hastily took out the carefully preserved envelope from my bag and handed it to him. "Thanks," he waved at someone. "Look after this for me." Later, I found my envelope in the trash can and heard Spencer's driver say the boss had casually handed him several envelopes containing checks as tips today. I suppose one of those is meant for me. There was no place for me on the scene, so I had to sit in the corner. As the doors opened, Chloe made her entrance, wearing an exquisite headpiece and a handcrafted custom wedding gown, every detail exactly as she had once dreamed it would be. I couldn't bring myself to meet Chloe's gaze. Several times, at the brink of eye contact, I found myself looking away, but I couldn't escape it forever. As if sensing her gaze, I glanced up again, just as the light fell perfectly upon Chloe. When she tilted her head slightly, a strand of hair at her forehead fluttered in the breeze. In that moment, she was the most beautiful. Laughter filled the hall as the newlyweds offered their toasts. There was no escaping now. When my eyes finally met Chloe's, I dropped everything before me and fled in disgrace. "Because today's my birthday." She handed me her shoulder bag. "Hold this for me." After leaving the wedding, I took a long detour back to where I used to rent the apartment. Somehow, I suddenly craved that gyro wrap. I hadn't eaten gyros in a long time. Because of Chloe, I'd instinctively avoided them, never willingly stepping into a gyro shop. This street hadn't changed much. What surprised me was that the old food cart had turned into a proper little shop. "Anyone here?" I stood at the entrance, calling inside. The boss rushed out in a hurry, saw me, and started expertly packing the food. "You punk, no matter how busy work gets, you shouldn't make your girlfriend come by this in the middle of the night." I was puzzled how he still recognized me, but before I could say anything, he continued. "What? The bride still craving this flavor?" The boss beamed with delight. "Just make a phone call next time. No need to trouble the groom to come all this way." With a bitter smile, I took the food and replied softly, "I'm not the groom." The boss didn't say anything else, just forced an awkward smile. Clutching this huge bag of meat wraps, I walked down the street with tears streaming down my face. If only I'd come here even once in these 3 years. Might we have met? Might our ending have been different? "Chloe, I saw the sneakers under your wedding dress." "But Chloe, I'm still a coward." Suddenly I remembered something Chloe used to say many years ago. "Love doesn't look back," she said. Back then, I never understood the meaning behind those words she often said. Now, walking down this road, when I look back, it's as if I see Chloe's radiant smile as she held my hand and pulled me forward, running ahead while saying, "Don't look back." On cold winter nights, it was Chloe who stood at the alleyway clutching a hand warmer, always the first to tuck it into my palms, always the first to ask if I was tired that day. Then she'd take my hand and say, "Let's go home together." It's laughable how brave I once was for her, ignoring society's judgments, disregarding others' reproach, standing against the whole world, just because my heart was so full of wanting a future with her. Yet later, I gave up with unsettling ease. We weathered many storms together, and in the end, there were just as many we didn't survive. Love is something you can't turn back from. Chloe, don't look back, and you mustn't turn back. The end.